Alrighty, it is playoff time. The 4 knockout round games will take place on Wednesday and Thursday, which means tomorrow and also Thursday. And unfortunately, I just realized that I kind of cannot watch the Thursday games because I got volunteering that day. So most likely I'm just going to watch like the highlights of this game. I definitely could watch both of these games tomorrow, but these games, unfortunately, most likely I'm going to have to watch the highlights of it because I have to do some volunteering work. And I only noticed today that conflict in terms of my volunteering, that's going to happen on Thursday. But either way, let's actually talk about the action, and I'll try to do this quick because I want to do my second video tonight, which is the Moving Forward series for the Montreal Impact. And it shouldn't be a very long video because there's 4 games, although I will kind of be a little bit more expanded in terms of each of these games like that I have done in the regular season, which means I'll talk a little bit more about each game as I would be in the regular season. But we'll start with DC United versus the Columbus Crew, and we start talking about the 2 knockout round game in the Eastern Conference. And DC United, of course, play against Columbus Crew. Technically, this is actually the first game that kicks off at 4 o'clock my time and 7 o'clock Eastern, and this game kicks off at 8. But this one, DC, obviously, they should be heavy favorites coming into this game because they have a 12-1-2 record at Audi Field, and they have a 13-2-2 record overall at home. Now, when I look at the road record for DC United, I actually didn't know that they actually have the worst road record of any playoff team. Originally, I thought RSL actually has the worst record. No, it's actually DC that has the worst road record with 1-9-2. But road record doesn't matter for DC United, at least for this knockout round, because they're playing at home at Audi Field, which is a place that is just unbeatable, where they have been unbeatable, actually. And, the Columbus Crew obviously are coming into this game having won 3-2 against Minnesota. DC, of course, drew 0-0 on the road against the Fire. Don't forget, the Crew did win to the conference final last year, and they definitely surprised a lot of people from their deep run that they had last season in the playoffs. And once again, the Crew is getting overlooked, and I'm guessing Columbus fans will say that we basically had right where we want them, which is them underestimating that we are not gonna produce an upset, and that who knows that after 90 minutes or even after 120 minutes or even after penalty kick shootout, that Columbus could somehow shock DC United in this game, and somehow they will find a way to stop Wayne Rooney and Lucio Acosta, although that is going to be very hard to do. But when I look at it overall, DC still is heavy favorites in this, and the reason why I'm not going to be buying the fact that Columbus is going to pull a big surprise is because the squad that they had last season was much better than this squad. I mean, I know last season they had Ola Kamara that had, I think, 16 goals, and Jarzy Zardes actually have 19 this season and technically score more, but they just don't have other weapons that they had last season and other guys that can score goals besides Jarzy Zardes in this team. I mean, Jarzy Zardes has scored almost half of the team goals for this team. That just tells you how much they really struggle in terms of scoring goals. They're the lowest scoring team coming in to the playoffs out of any other playoff team right now. So, yeah, it's going to be very kind of interesting kind of game. DC for the last couple of games at Audi Field has not really, they haven't been just impressive in the last couple of games. They had 3 straight 1-0 win at Audi Field, so maybe this could be a low-scoring game. And knowing Columbus is probably going to defend, and they're just going to sit back and maybe trying to hit DC on the counterattack, maybe this is going to be a game where it's not going to be a lot of goal scoring. I mean, DC does have good attacking force with Lucio Acosta and also Wayne Rooney, but Columbus also have Will Trapp and Zach Steffen as their main piece of defending. And, Zach Steffen is one of the best goalkeeper in this league. But moving on into the next match. So NYCFC play against the Union. So both of these teams actually split in their season series. And I forgot to mention, both of these teams actually split the season series between DC and Columbus. But that was way back in April. And that was just a complete different DC United team than the one that Columbus is about to face. And, this is, of course, the second time both of these teams are facing off each other. Remember, a couple of days ago, they face off on Decision Day. And it's actually going to be at the same venue as the match for Decision Day, which is bad news for the Union. Because in that Decision Day game, they really were poor and also had no answer in terms of stopping this NYCFC attack. And also the fact that they just couldn't do anything going forward. They couldn't play the style that they love to play, mainly because, Yankee Stadium pitch is the smallest in the league and it's just very funky. And they just had no answer to try to figure out. Although, I'm assuming maybe Jim Curtin will find a way to figure that out. Maybe he will look at the tape and see what went wrong. And maybe after 3 days later, I'm assuming he'll try not to make the same mistake as last time. But then again, I still think NYCFC is favored in this one because they have the weapons. And also, they only have lost one game at home this season. And, the Union is a very kind of young team. And usually when you have a lot of young guys go into the playoffs, they usually don't do very well because they just lack those experience when they get into the playoffs. And when just crucial moment happen in the playoffs, they usually kind of falter because they're still very young. And also, I forgot to mention that both teams have never won a playoff series. So NYCFC, 3 trips to the playoffs, including one that they got a first round bye. All 3 times they got eliminated in either the first round or in the second round. And it's the same thing for the Union. Twice that they went to the playoffs before this one, twice they got eliminated in the first round. And, something is going to have to give in this game. And one of these teams is going to break their playoff curse that they have of them not winning a playoff game. And I still think NYCFC is the most likely one to get this victory just because they have home field advantage. And in terms of talent-wise, they just are more talented than what the Union is. And also, speaking of the Union, I forgot to mention this back on Decision Day, but there was actually an incident between Corey Burke and Deutschkel in the first half where Burke was actually having a heated argument with Deutschkel, and Jim Curtin had to sub off Corey Burke and actually had to bench him at halftime because he was kind of like fighting Deutschkel. I believe was on a free kick or something like that. But basically, Jim Curtin just said that he is planning to put Corey Burke back on this team, despite the fact that he had that confrontation with Deutschkel in that match on Decision Day. And it's big that they have Burke back in this team because he is their most deadliest weapon going forward. But the question with the Union is that even if Burke is in there, you wonder with what happened on that Decision Day and what happened with that heated argument with Deutschkel and also his other teammate, will his teammate started to not just give the ball to him because of that? It's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to go. But now let's talk about the Western Conference and let's talk about the 2 knockout round in the Western Conference. And we'll start with LAFC versus RSL. And, LAFC and RSL faced twice in the regular season, and it wasn't even close in terms of the 2 matchups they faced. I mean, they outscored them 7-1 on aggregates in those 2 matches, including an embarrassing 5-1 beatdown at Rio Tinto, and was the worst ever home opening loss RSL has ever suffered in their club history. And then, of course, a couple of weeks ago, they lost 2-0 at Bank of California Stadium. And RSL only have 3 wins on the road. That is the worst in terms of any Western Conference playoff team, and I believe that's second worst behind DC United that only have one win on the road. But unlike DC United, where they get the benefit of the doubt that they will be playing a home game for the knockout round, RSL does not. And in many ways, you can kind of say RSL don't really belong in the playoffs, considering what happened on decision day. This team kind of reminds me of the Quakes, of how it's a team that just sneak into the 6th spot when you kind of feel like they probably shouldn't belong in it. And what happened last year with the Quakes when they play against Vancouver, they got absolutely destroyed. Now, I'm not saying that RSL is going to get absolutely owned by LAFC in this game. I mean, I think RSL still have more talent than the Quakes team last season. I mean, their midfield is pretty stacked with Savarino and Rustek, and also Demar Krylak scoring the goal for them. And let's not forget, Corey Bear is having a very good season and most likely will win Rookie of the Year award. But they're playing against an LAFC team that, although they still have issue in the back line and also in the midfield, when you have to go against Carlos Vela, Diego Rossi, and also Adama Diamande, it's not going to go very well. And I think LAFC will just have enough to beat RSL in this game. And I know there is this interesting stats about how only one expansion team has ever won a playoff series in MLS history, and that was back in 1997 when the Chicago Fire went all the way to MLS Cup and won MLS Cup. But the interesting thing about this 1997 Chicago Fire team is that this 1997 Chicago Fire team is the same manager as the current manager of LAFC, which is Bob Bradley. And I guess if LAFC does win this game, maybe history is going to be on their side and Bob Bradley is just going to lead this team all the way to MLS Cup final. I mean, why not? He did it with the 97 Chicago Fire. Why not? He could potentially do it for LAFC too. Although, let's be honest, back in 1997, the league was completely different than what it is now. It wasn't as competitive, and the Fire didn't really have to play a lot of game before getting into the final. I think they play like the semi-final, or actually just the conference final before moving on into the final. They didn't have a lot of obstacle to get into the MLS Cup final because there wasn't really a lot of team back then. Nowadays, that's a little bit different. And you know, with LAFC, with their problems with their back line and midfield, and them struggling to trying to build from the back, they might easily beat RSL in this game, but I don't know about the next round when they would potentially face, I think Seattle is the opponent that they will face in the next round. But moving on into the final matchup in the knockout round, it's FC Dallas versus Portland Timbers. And this one is definitely the hardest one to predict. And this is not because it's the hardest one to predict because both of these teams are very good, but both of these teams are really bad. Like, seriously, if these two teams did not face off each other and face off against another team in the knockout round, they most likely would have lost. Well, actually, maybe if they face RSL, maybe they'll win that game. And, you know, this is no disrespect to RSL fans, but I really think RSL is probably the worst team right now in the knockout round. But, you know, when you look at FC Dallas and the Timbers, these two teams are coming into this game in just horrendous form. FC Dallas coming into this game having lost 3 in a row, and they have only scored 3 goals in October. That is absolutely insane. The fact that they have only scored 3 goals in 4 matches in October. And for the Timbers, they have 1 win on the road since June 30th. Since that Cascadia derby, which they beat Seattle 3-2 in that game. But ever since, they only have 1 win. And that 1 win was against RSL. And I would put kind of a quotation mark in terms of that win because RSL wasn't really good in that match. Other than that, they have just really struggled on the road, and they are the road team in this game. And both of these teams, I think, plays kind of a very similar style. Both of these team has kind of okay kind of attack, but they do tends to like to grind games out, and especially from what I've seen with FC Dallas throughout the season, there's been time where they have just grind games out, and they always have somebody, whether it's Barrios, Urruti, or maybe Mauro Diaz. Well, Mauro Diaz is no longer with this team, and who was the other guy that they... Or maybe even Tesha Akindele or Rito Ziegler as the one that somehow, that is the guy that will somehow find a way to score goals to win them game. Although, lately, that has definitely not happened. And, when you look at this matchup, I just think this is going to be just... It's definitely one that probably a lot of people will not watch, because it's probably going to be very boring. It's going to be pretty kind of side to side. There probably won't be a lot of kind of action in this game, and it's probably even going to end up 0-0 after 120 minutes. Because remember, both of these teams drew in their season series. Both of these teams play each other twice, and the first game it was 1-1. The second game it was 0-0. So both of those game aggregate score was only 1-1. So something tells me that this is going to be a low scoring game, and I think whoever scored this first goal might have just won this game, because both of these teams doesn't really have good attack, but both of these teams has a very good defense, and it's just going to be a very kind of slow, kind of boring kind of game that one of these teams eventually will win. Although whoever wins this match, well, they are getting ready to prepare to get absolutely manhandled in the next round, because the next opponent they will face in the second round is Sporting KC, and most likely Sporting KC is gonna beat whoever wins this matchup. So I guess in some way it doesn't really matter who wins this match. They're probably gonna get knocked out in the next round, but we'll see how this game is gonna go. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the prediction of the knockout round. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games. Let me know in the comments what's your prediction on these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.